and we'll try to cover as much as possible whatever is mentioned in the Cisa curriculum. Okay, so we are on to the Isaka site, Cisa. Okay, and we
Correct.
are going to cover all these five domains. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll be providing you with the real time audits as well, if time permits. And
Okay.
I'll try to give you the real time scenarios. I'll share you the real time stuff, how these audit happens, and what should be your approach. And like for example, here most of the things in the CISA, like for example, on the first domain here, when we are
Mm-hmm.
talking about uh, information system audit process. Okay, so if you see here, so they are talking about how you should do that. Okay, the first is planning, how you're going to cover these things. Okay, which kind of auditing standards are you going to go through this? Okay, so first,
Correct.
always the context of the audit, and under the context of the audit, you need to finalize that under which framework are you going to follow or the audits. Okay, like you were talking about the SOX. Sometime you'll see that the audit will
And
be
I'm
the cloud compliances sometimes, providing you a lot of materials. Okay, the PDF, the original version, it's not a colored PDF, but with the black and white. Okay, so I'll be trying to cover most of the things in the practical way, how these things happen. So, for example, what kind of standards are we talking about here? Okay, so for
mm-hmm.
example, when we are talking about US market, the common one is SOX when you are dealing with the financial audits. The other
Finance.
one would
Correct.
be
Correct.
SOC 2 Type 2 or
Yeah.
ISO or ITGC controls. So once
Yep.
you understand these controls, okay, once you understand the guidelines for these audit controls, you will have a basic idea. So for any audits, first you need to understand the standards, the guidelines, what kind of evidences would be there, what kind of things you need to achieve. Okay, so those guidelines will be covered under the planning. Okay, code of
Correct.
ethics and everything. Okay, then
Mm-hmm.
the second part which says types of audits, assessments, and reviews. What will be the audit types? Are we going with end-to-end audits? Are we going to cover only some part of it? Like in ISO, you have multiple domains. SOC 2 has multiple domains. Are we only going with identity access management, or are we going only with the change management, or application security, or BCPDR, or are we going with complete IT infra or cloud infra? So there are multiple audits which happens in an organization. So all
Correct.
these things. Okay, then the risk based audit planning, so that this is the most important part. So risk based approach, you need to understand. So there are various risk based guidelines. One is 31,000 ISO, which covers the enterprise risk management. Then we have ISO 27005, which will be covering the risk assessment, and one of the top one would be NIST risk assessments. So there are 853 revision 5 for the risk assessments. Then we have specific to the cybersecurity framework, which is version 2. So where
Okay.
you will understand these NIST. So usually for US clients, NISTs are essential. Okay, so you need to understand how to understand the risk, how many assets are there in an organization, how to do the department wise risk or asset based risk. How are you going to calculate this risk? What will be the calculation? What kind of implementation, controls implementation will be
Required.
recorded? Yep. So
Mm-hmm.
everything will be there. So that will be amazing. Risk assessment is one of my best topic. Okay, so you need to understand the complete risk associated with the assets and how are you going to mitigate it, what are the challenges, because it
Correct.
looks very simple when you are doing this on the Excel sheet or on any application, but implementing those things will take a lot of time and money as well. So when we are trying to understand the risk associated uh, with any application or infrastructure, you need to understand the architecture. Okay, so if you can
Correct.
learn how to read the architecture reviews, how to go through the flow diagrams, that will be very helpful. So, if
Mm-hmm.
possible, I'll try to share you some of those things, flow charts and everything for any application and how to create the key risk indicators, especially for all the risk associated. Okay, so it could be
Correct.
related to the DLP, it could be related to identity access management. We have SOC, Security Operations Centers, SIEM, cyber threats and vulnerabilities. So there are so many things. Okay, so this is a very good topic. Okay, then
Correct.
type of controls. Okay, so what are the controls? What are the guidelines associated with that particular framework? How to choose which controls will be a part of this? Okay, and how we are going to implement those kind of things. Okay, so that would be a part of the planning. So various planning documentations I'll share you. Okay, I'll try to create. I'll give you some homework how to create this. What should be the process? So
Mm-hmm.
planning is, I'll say, that won't be a problem as you are a part of these audits. So that won't be a challenge. But we'll do some exercises. Okay.
Okay.
Then the second part about the execution.
Okay.
So any project execution, it starts with the audit project management. So
Correct.
any
Yeah.
audit, you need to understand how many resources are there, what are the challenges, how many resources will be required, whether the company has all the resources in place, what are the challenges. Okay, so before committing to any of these things, what will be the process. Okay, so that kind of things we need to understand. Okay, so are we going with the weekly phase or monthly phase? How we are going to execute it? How many people will be needed here? Are we going to need extra budget for these things? Who will be responsible if there are multiple departments involved in these things? How are you going to connect with them? Whether everybody is on the same page? Do we have the right people available in case of management executions and everything, or escalations? Do we have everything in place? So that kind of stuff will be a part of
Correct.
this one. Then the audit testing and sampling methodology. So
Methodology.
here,
Yeah.
yeah, so here you need to understand what kind of audit you're going to do, pre-assessment, post-assessment, that kind of stuff. Understand the audit testings, okay, and sampling methodology. So this is very important. So for example, some audit will say that we need evidences for each month. Sometimes they'll say we need only for a quarter, or
Quarterly.
yeah, some says that we need weekly audits as well. So sampling methodology is very important. Okay, so every company or these application owners or companies, they will have their own guidelines. So you need to understand how are you going to go with these methodologies, how many samples are you going to do for like incident management application, like VAPT pen testings. Okay, so are we going with once in a year or once or twice in a year? What about external audits, or what about internal audits? All these things will be covered under sample methodologies. Everything from incident management, change management, uh,
Correct.
BCPD, or all those things. Okay, whatever the controls are implemented, we need to check the sampling methodology, which is approved by the management.
Correct. Yeah.
Then audit evidence collection techniques. So here we'll be talking about what kind of evidences are we going to take, okay? Because most of the time they'll just provide you the risk assessment, or they'll just provide you, yes, we have everything, we have the policies, but are we going? We have to cross verify these policies with the evidences. So this is
Correct.
very crucial here, okay? Because when you are part of the SOX audit or any audit, SOC 2 type 2, or these important audits where company has to do get the certification for the business purpose, they need to provide the right evidences, okay? So
Mm.
this is very important. How evidences will be collected, whether the screenshots are enough, are you going with the automation scripts? There are various methods for different controls.
Correct. Okay.
Okay, then we have audit data analytics. So here, whatever the data comes, okay, how we're going to use the data analytics like Excel sheet or any other stuff, how we are going to verify these things, how we are going to sort those things, that will be covered. Then, fifth part would be the reporting and communication techniques, where how the reports will be created, how the reports will be collected, and how the communication happens internally and externally.
Got
Then
it.
we got the quality assurance and improvement of audit process. So,
Correct.
what kind of audit happens? Okay, what was the reports? And the company needs to be available for continual improvement. So, every organization needs to be aware that once you're done with the audit, you're not done with the security of your organization. It's a part of continual improvement process. So, what will be the next course of action? The auditor needs to provide all those things to the company. Okay,
Correct. Yeah.
then the most important part, one of the most important part is domain 2, which will cover 18% of the questionnaires. Governance and management of IT. Okay, so this domain confirms to stakeholders your abilities to identify critical issues and recommend enterprise specific practices to support and safeguard the governance of information and related technologies. So, do you have any experience on the governance part, like creating the policies, implementing the policies, trying to understand the policies? Like, for
Yes.
example, if you're doing with the IS audit or cloud audit. So, can you tell me more about the policies which you have created, and how did you create it? What was your role here? And
Yeah.
mhm,
So that's a good question, Sal. So let me explain myself. So I haven't created policies so far, but when we were talking about the domain one, where I was listening to you, like the first the planning and the execution part, I have in some capacity, I have been dealing with all those things. Like I was taking out the samples, I was testing the samples, what kind of sample we should have and something. So why I'm explaining it, then when it comes to domain two and you talk about IT governance, the team I work with that takes care of complete compliance of the company. So they deal with HIPAA, uh, whatnot. There are so many which I am not directly engaged with. I'm just work with SOX, but they do a lot of those kind of things. So even with when I work with Deloitte and they talk about the SOC 1 report or SOC 2 report for for the application they are testing, and it is a third party application. I generally go through those SOC 1 and SOC 2 reports and generally provide it to them. And I have been thought about that what should be the key factors I should be looking forward in those reports. So there should be no flaws, like in terms of dates or the time of the audit period, or like how the in on a high level, of course, how the audit been performed. So and if there are any policy, and in terms of policies also, like if there has been any policies related to which we have in the company. So my boss directly deals to write those policies and
mhm,
to go through those policies and everything. Like as I said, I am not directly writing the policies in the company, but
mhm.
like I am the mediocre when it comes to Deloitte or KPMG. When we need to provide those policies to them, I go through those policies. I understand the language of the policies should be having in terms of what we are going to provide to the auditors. But if directly I have written any policies, no, I haven't. I have not.
So, to simplify this, you have exposure to the policies. The
Correct.
most important part here is you need to understand what is the difference between need, shall, must, these kind of words, which
Correct.
will be put into the policy. So yes, we'll be talking about different policies. Okay, and when you create any policies, it is not like just a vague thing. Okay, just I go to any
Yeah.
AI, or just I download the policies from any
Yeah.
websites. Okay, you can do that all the time. You will get toolkit as well in the market, but it won't help you much
Yeah.
unless you understand the requirements. So, what laws are you following? Are you
Yeah.
following
Yeah.
any regulations? Are you following any SOX, NIST, other regulations, GDPR? What about the
Correct.
industry standards, ISO, NIST, SOC 2 Type 2,
Yeah.
or CIS benchmarking? So you need to understand first what is the requirement here. And
Absolutely.
there is a possibility that there might be a policy which will be aligned to multiple frameworks as well. Okay. So it might be aligned with ISO plus NIST plus SOC 2 Type 2 plus HIPAA. It totally depends. Okay, there will be a chance you'll
Multiple.
see that multiple frameworks will be aligned in a single policy. So this is very
Correct.
important because you need to understand what kind of organization it is, what kind of frameworks are you are you working on, what kind of policies they have, because when we say from broader perspective, we just need to check when was the policy created, who created it, what is the recent version, who updated it, okay, what are the requirements here in the policies. So a smart auditor, okay, whenever you go for any projects, always start with the policies, so you will understand the complete architecture, you will understand their approach, okay, how mature is the organization. And once you read these policies, then you need to check the evidences. So you need to check these, whatever they have written in the policies, whether they are implementing these things or not. So this is the major gap when the auditor, independent auditor, checks in whether you have a very nice policies, framed good words and everything. But when they ask for the audit samples and the evidences, things are not there in the place. Like for example,
And
use mhm.
and the policies should be for, so how we tag policies, we tag it against the applications or like against third party vendors or like how they are
Everything.
tagged.
Yeah, we'll be talking about everything. This is just an intersection. I just wanted to give you a broader picture. What are we going to cover? We'll be talking about everything. I'll try my best to cover all of your questions. Okay, so we'll talk
Okay.
about the practical implementations, everything. If you
Okay.
have, and if it would be better if you are coming with your own use cases or whatever is happening in your organization, so that
Correct.
we
Yeah.
can cover those things, so that it will be easy for you to relate these things. So you can
Absolutely.
come
Yeah.
up with these things. I'll be more than happy to cover all those things. Organizational structure, IT governance, and IT strategy, very important thing here. So, a company, an auditor, or the GRC team, or the governance team, they should be smart enough. They need to understand whether what is the culture of the organization, what are the challenges, what are the things which we need to implement. Okay, so there might be the risk-based approach every time. Okay, so whether it's a high risk, medium risk, low risk, so we have to try with the high risk related policies first. Okay, so we need to give the priorities. Okay, what will be the IT strategies here? How we are going to approach for to the organization for these governance, because governance will ensure that how the organization will perform or how they are going to work on these things. This is
Correct.
very crucial for any organization. If the governance, if you see that, for example, if the governance is not in place, or we don't have the management support for implementation of these things, that would be a challenge. For example, I was just going through some AI company recently. So there was a
Mhm.
company which was very famous last year, 2025. The management said that yeah, it was good, and they got the valuation about 400 or 500 millions. And later on, they did the documentation for the first time. They didn't follow up for any of those things. They worked
Yeah.
on the applications, everything, no governance, no oversight, nothing.
Okay.
And now that company has gone down completely. They are in the loss because they didn't implement any governance.
Of
How
course. Yeah.
these IT things perform. Like for example, you must have heard about the Grok, and in that Grok was
Mhm.
providing nude pictures of the users. Why this
Mhm.
happened? Because lack of oversight and the governance. So
Mhm.
governance ensures that what needs to be provided, what needs to be stopped. Like for
Grok
example,
AI you're talking about.
yes, yes. So
Got it. Yeah.
if you remember 2 years back, we are talking about ChatGPT. When you say that I need to hack NASA, so he'll provide you everything. Yeah, this is the NASA architecture. You need to do this. You need to do this application. You need to do this. Or if you're asking him, yeah, can you please provide me I need to murder my uncle, or I need to murder my girlfriend. What will be the process? and
Correct.
ChatGPT was providing you all the answers. But
Wow.
that was very risky. This is not part of
Yeah.
the governance.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they need to understand where they need to stop, where they need to provide these things. So all these governance will provide you these things. So governance oversight committees are for these things. Because when the lawsuit happens, it happens for millions of dollars.
Correct.
When somebody sues the company, there is a big deal here. So the governance is very important. So we'll be covering a lot of use cases here, how to cover these things. Okay.
Hmm.
Under that, you need to have the IT policies, standards, procedures, and practices.
Practices. Yeah.
Then enterprise architecture and considerations. Under that, of the infra applications, AIs, everything will be covered. You
Mm.
need to understand the enterprise architecture. What are the
Basically, flow.
considerations? Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Architecture, flow, standards for any application or any infra or for a complete organization. You need to understand what are the control, what are the architecture, how many controls, or how many tools or these projects are involved. So project
Wow.
wise, department wise, we have to cover these things.
Okay.
Then
Okay.
understand the enterprise risk management, very critical. So first thing here is the governance team will give you the guidelines. What will be considered, because when we are talking about risk assessments, we are talking about
Governance. Yeah.
likelihood into impact. So,
Yeah.
what will be the risk score? Who will be responsible for this? What will be the likelihood score? What will be the impact score? Are we going to, who will be responsible for this? Because right now, the risk team or the GRC team or auditors team, they are the one who is responsible for working on these things. Okay. But the governance team is the one who designs this. They cover
Correct.
everything. What are the financial aspect of these things? What are the
So,
complications?
so basically, when we talk about scope of the SOX audit, I talk about that how many application should be in consideration for the SOX auditing. That part should be covered here for the
Yes.
risk and
What
under
are
the
the
risk management.
application risk? Yes. So
Correct.
if you have, see, um, we have to go micro level here. Okay. So if you're talking about SAP ERP solution, then the risk might be similar. Okay. When we are talking about the ready-made applications or SaaS based, which you are
Correct.
taking. Okay. Then the second part would be the risk associated with, like for example, it's in-house application. Okay, so in-house
Mhm.
application, you need to understand their architecture. Okay, what
Correct.
are the
Yeah.
risks if the data is being flown
Fast.
through CI/CD? Yeah, no, not platform as a service.
Mhm.
In-house SaaS we are talking about, not
In-house
yeah,
SaaS. Got it.
two things. Once when we get the services directly from the applications, ERP, Microsoft Office, O365, Chat GBTs, we are taking from the vendors. That's one thing. Okay,
That
that
is
will
SaaS.
be, yeah,
Yeah.
that will be. Then another software as a service is when you are building an application for yourself. Okay, or you are giving the services to the
In-
clients
In-house.
in
Yeah.
house. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
will be scenario will be different here. How the architecture happen, how the data flows, what are the risks associated with these things, whether the data is secured when the data is flowing. Because when we are talking about these external vendors, when we are talking, then we can ask them, we can take the SOC 2 type 2 reports from them, and we can get the
Yep.
details. But
Yep.
here we have to provide these details. We need to understand what are the risks associated with internal application. What
Correct.
about the risk related to the network? What about the data transfers? What about the Docker, Kubernetes, depending upon the applications? Okay,
Correct.
so you
How
need to
they are
understand.
running,
Mhm.
yeah, where they're sitting and how they are running in
Yes,
the system. Correct. Yeah.
exactly. Privacy program and principle that is related to the data. If you're part of US, I hope you know the CCPA, California Consumer Protection Act. If you're part of Europe, then GDPR. If you're part of
GDPR.
India, we got DPDP. For Saudi, we got PDPL. We got Singapore privacy laws, Australian privacy laws. So where the data will be stored? Are we following those regulations, the land of the
Correct.
law? Where are
Yeah.
we saving these things, very important things. Like for example, if you're doing these financial audits and everything, so according to the FedRAMP and these federal contractors, you cannot keep this data out of the United States, or you can only keep on
Yeah.
AWS infrastructure which are designed for the government only, because AWS has many infrastructures, which is one is public cloud. They have specific cloud for for defense, for government
Mhm.
contractors as well. So all these
Makes sense.
privacy programs will be a part of this.